life's experiences. And in my previous life, I was a children's pastor for nearly 20 years.
Oh,
And I did an awful lot of marketing to children, but I knew that I had to communicate to the parent because we were reaching children and parents that did not attend church. So we had to excite the child, but give assurance to the adult, the mum and dad.
good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when and where you're watching this podcast from. My name is Kunle Olufemi. I am your host on The Adventures, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another exciting and I dare say a super exciting edition of The Adventures podcast. Right, as you know, on Adventures, we seek to tell the stories of courage and vision behind the brands and the businesses that you see around you every day. Right, and today we're just going to be doing that. And we have an exciting guest for you today. So please, I will encourage you to please get your writing materials, right? Get a comfortable position, get your writing materials, and be ready to glean, solid wisdom from this very episode of The Adventures. All right. Today, our guest is not just he's young at heart, right? But he's more like an elderly entrepreneur and he's been on the entrepreneurial journey for some time. So this is not just somebody who has done business and succeeded. So he's done multiple businesses, and so his success is not a fluke, right? And he's got stories and experiences and testimonies to share. So to say, he is the founder of an organization in the UK called the Blue Squid UK, and I think they said that they take fun seriously, right? Blue Squid was founded in 2015, and has been dedicated to its mission of bringing families together, fostering bonding and enhancing energy, creativity, and happiness. Right? I dare say today that Blue Squid is the category leader, you know, um, number one seller of face paints and related products on Amazon globally, right? So when Paul speaks, you better listen to him. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Paul Bristol. Hi, Paul. Pleasure to have you around.
Hi, Cunley. It's great to be here. Thanks for the incredible introduction. I kind of don't recognize myself sometimes when you talk.
Thank you, Paul, for coming. It's such a pleasure to have you around. So ideally, what we do is we start by asking you to, of course, say hello to our viewers and then tell them a little bit about your business, right? I call it your unpaid advert because you never can tell. Some of your customers may be on my timeline, right? So go ahead and tell us just a little bit about yourself and about the business, and then we'll begin to dive into the interview proper. Over to you, Paul.
Okay, well, yeah, great to be here. And thank you, Cunley, so much for having me on your channel, which I've watched a few episodes and they've all been very good, very excellent. So I wish you well in the growth of the channel and hope that I can play my small part in helping contribute to its success. My name's Paul Bristow. Um, I think you alluded to my age a minute ago. I know that African gentlemen always look really young for their age. I think I probably look what I am, which is I turned 60 last weekend. So for me, that was a big thing because I always thought that 60-year-olds are very old people. But now I'm there. But I feel strong and I feel fit. And my wife and I, we launched a business on Amazon 10 years ago, and it's been successful. We started on Amazon in the US with children's face paint. Our brand is called Blue Squid. And from the success, which we'll tell more stories about how that evolved later. We branched out to selling on Amazon in Europe, which is UK, Germany, and France primarily. And we also diversified from not just face paint, but to other children's arts and craft. So yeah, it's been an exciting journey. I have another business, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit as well, which is a property business. And yeah, good to be here.
Thanks a lot, Paul, for that very brief introduction. So, if you are in the UK or even anywhere around the world and you're interested in buying face paints, you know where to or what to search for, right? Blue Squid, they have a website, and of course, you can search them out on Amazon. All right. Paul, I guess the first question I have for you will be around the scale of your operations today in terms of maybe your customer base, the size of the business, in terms of maybe the people, the customers you're serving, you know um the scope of the operations across country. You alluded to that briefly, right? And maybe I think yeah, basically that.
Okay, well, primarily our purchases are all on Amazon. I mean,
Mm,
Amazon is a big skill that has to. It's a big monster and a lot of skill required to succeed on that platform.
yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily call myself an e-commerce expert, but I've learned how to do Amazon. So
Wow.
as far as our own
Mm,
website sales are concerned, they are very, very, very fractionally low, like less than 1%. Um, so we put all of our energy into um, being attractive to someone who's searching. If you type in the word face paint on Amazon rather than Google, on Google you just might be inquiring about face paint, learning about designs or whatever. Whereas if you type that keyword on Amazon, you know that you are dealing with a shopper, someone who has an intent to purchase. So Amazon is the world's largest shopping search engine, and we found that's the place to be. Um, so customer base, I would guess we've had maybe 4 million customers buy our product over the 10 years. 70% of our business is on Amazon in the US, 15% in the UK, and the remainder is split between mostly Germany, but a little bit of France. Italy and Spain is really minuscule. But yeah, that's where the customers are based. As far who are the customer, well, someone buying for children, arts and craft, face paint, they're probably mums,
mm,
parents, maybe grandparents.
mm.
Certainly, it's not the kids who are typing away. They don't seem to have the money. So, yeah, they're the type of customer. And we have to keep that very much in mind in terms of the customer avatar, who you are communicating with. So, in terms of everything we do in terms of packaging and our images and our videos, they're very geared towards the purchaser, but we're also trying to be attractive to the child because the child is the one that's going to receive the package maybe as a gift, and we want them to be elated when they open. So, yeah, very child friendly, but also communicating. The parent cares about safety of their children. Face paint, for example, is a cosmetic that you put on your face, so you need to hit the points that mother is concerned about for their child's well-being.
Wow, wow. Thanks a lot, Paul, for that. 4 million shoppers over the last 10 years is an average of, give or take, like half a million a year, right? Maybe more on the average, right?
But it's
So,
grown. It's probably more these days. Yeah, an average purchase price would be about $25, I would guess.
wow, wow. Well, that's okay. I guess my question is, how many of these would you consider to be, of this 4 million, unique shoppers, would you consider to be like regular shoppers or repeat shoppers, or are most of them just like one time kind of customers?
I think about 5% are repeat customers, and maybe that's grown a little bit more in the US.
Mm,
If obviously face paint, although we don't market Halloween, um, people come and buy face paint a lot at Halloween. So when you see Blue Squid, when you're searching for that product, and then you come again next year, that would, oh yeah, I remember that, I had that last year. So that you do get a lot more repeat purchase around that holiday season. So yeah, I don't have the actual analysis on it, but that would be my estimate,
Yeah, yeah. I
about
mean,
5%.
it's just very good to know that. I mean, I like what you shared around the fact that your primary consumers are kids, are children, but they are not the decision makers, right? They are not the one bringing the money out of their pocket. Did you have to learn that the hard way, or it has always been part of your, like, the way you operated in terms of your targeting of your messaging, your packaging, and all of that? How did you arrive at that conclusion, or you've always known?
I think it goes back to. I'm sure we're going to talk about this a lot in the course of the call,
Yeah.
but life's experiences. And in my previous life, I was a children's pastor for nearly 20 years.
Oh,
And I did an awful lot of marketing to children, but I knew that I had to communicate to the parent because we were reaching children and parents that did not attend church. So we had to excite the child, but give assurance to the adult, the mum and dad, that this was a safe place that they could send their children to. In the UK, they take children. We take safeguarding really, really very seriously. So I learnt that very much so in the children's ministry role. And then, of course, when you've learnt that, then a
it's
lot
kind
of
of,
what I learnt there has come into the brand.
yeah.
I learned how to market to kids, and I learned how to market to parents.
And you learned it in church.
I learned it in church. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. So if we go back a little bit, Paul, to how it all started, right? Speaking of Blue Squid, and if you want to go even further back than that, feel free. How would you say that this whole thing started? Why face paints? Why, I think you've explained a little bit about why it's on Amazon, but why face paint? Why that particular category? And, can you share a little bit with us about that?
So, can I go back a little bit further, and then I get to answer
Yeah,
that
yeah, that's
question?
okay. That's
So,
okay.
prior to being a children's pastor, I was in IT for almost 20 years as well. So
Mm,
I started at the bottom as a operator, then a programmer, then an analyst, a project manager, and then I ran a systems development for a major insurance PLC in London.
mm,
And so I learned a lot about IT and tech and management and project management and
mm,
the ability to manage many, many moving parts.
yeah.
I then felt God's call to leave that career and take a huge salary cut and work reaching children. That was my heart to reach children with the message of
Mm,
Jesus. And so we launched. I went and worked for the church, but with the very distinct purpose of running a children's outreach ministry
mm,
to unchurched kids, and that was very, very successful and a very rewarding part of my life. I
mm,
loved that part of my career. But as that began to come to a natural conclusion for me because of
mm.
my age, because it was a highly energetic type activity, um,
How big
I
was
began to
this?
get into. Oh,
How big
sorry.
was that ministry? How big was that? How expansive was that operation?
Okay, so um, I live in Windsor, and I grew up in a town called Slough, which is next door to Windsor. So in Windsor, we have lots of estates, and where there can be thousands. I think Slough is, I think it's 150,000 people. I think Windsor is 30,000 people. So it's nothing like Lagos. I know some of your audience is there, which is multi millions. So we're dealing with fairly small towns. We're not dealing with cities.
Yeah.
And sorry that I say that first, but to answer your question, we launched 6 double-decker buses within a
Mm.
very short period of time at the beginning, and we were reaching, on average, 400 to 500 children a week that would
Wow.
come on these double-decker buses and come to this children's outreach project. And over 18 years, we had 18,000 children in
Wow.
attendance. And what I learned I had a team of 40 people in the church, volunteers. I was full time employed, and I haven't had an employed assistant in the church. But as I say, 40 volunteers.
Mm.
And what we learned, we then went to South Africa and we taught a church that was a sister church in
Wow.
just outside of Cape Town.
Mm.
And that ministry model was replicated there, and it turned that church upside down. It
Wow.
absolutely revolutionized. They were seeing 1,000 kids every week. I mean, it was
Wow.
incredible. So when we first went there, it was like 150 people. It very much soon became 150 people with 1,000 kids, and
Wow.
then over time, those kids become part of the adult youth and adult church as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's my background.
Okay. So how did that transition into the business of face paints and Blue Squid
Oh
and
yeah,
all
yeah. Sorry, I didn't answer that question.
that?
So we began to get into property. We made lots of mistakes in property, but we then began to go on various training courses and learn how to do it right. And in those courses, where we had to pivot our property business into a completely different model that began to be very successful, we bought several houses and then we ran out of deposit money. And there were lots of people on the property events that I attended that began to talk of this Amazon opportunity. The opportunity was described as 4 hours work a week, and you can sit on a beach, and the money just pours in. So I thought, oh, that sounds good. I'll go on a course. So we spent a lot of money on training, and we learned about how to do Amazon. We began to learn the basic steps, and our first product was a wine accessory product, and
Paul,
we spent.
can I ask you to pause there just to quickly double click on a point? You mentioned that before you started the business, you went on this extensive training. How long was that? How old were you? How much are we looking at in terms of training investment?
Okay, so the course was £3,000, and it was a 2 day course. So it was quite an investment. It wasn't a long course, but then they tried to do a hard sell, and I think I did sign up for a £10,000 course, but then realised, hang on a minute, this is a bit shady, and I got my money back, and I didn't go through the course. I felt, actually, no, I've learnt the basics. Let's now just give it a go. So we gave it a go, and the first product, as I said, was a wine accessory product, and we had to go through a lot of steps in order to get it into Amazon and get launched, and it was a complete failure, absolute dreadful failure. Imagine. I remember after probably 4 months of working on this product, it eventually landed in Amazon, and I was at a birthday party, my father-in-law's birthday party, a barbecue in a garden, and I popped my phone. Oh, we made a sale, and then next minute, oh, we've made another sale, and then the next minute, another sale. Flipping out, we've only just gone live. What's going on? And within 20 minutes, I had 500 units as a test order. Within 20 minutes, I'd sold 250,
Of the wine accessories, right?
but I'd sold them. Instead of $25, I'd sold them at $1 each. So that's the first lesson I learned of how not to run Amazon coupons
That
and
was why it
discounts,
was
and
moving very fast, right?
because basically I'd put a
Give it a
99%
break.
discount on, and so there were different methods and ways of. Basically, I'd made a huge mistake. A
Yeah.
coupon code should have been a private thing, but it was public on the Amazon website. And then as soon as someone noticed it, they all talked to their friends, and everyone just dives in. So yeah, we learned lots of mistakes. We learned how not to do Amazon, and the product was a flop, and we gave up. My wife and I just gave up. But then probably 4 months, 5 months later, I thought, and I said to Julie, I think we need to have another look, because we learned an awful lot in the mistake. In the errors that we made, there was a lot of steps in the process that we need to have another go. So basically, I went back to square one and started doing product research again, and I found an opportunity in face paint. And we placed a test order, I think, of 1,000 units. They eventually landed in Amazon, and they sold very, very fast. Not as fast. They sold sensibly priced, but they sold quickly. And it was at that point that I thought, hang on, this looks good. So we then placed another order of 3,000 units because now we're ordering big. um, so these products are like $5 a piece. So now we're spending 15,000 on our next order, and again they were selling really quick. And I thought, hang on, this is good. So I had been working with a mentor, and I messaged him and I said, look, wherever you are in the world, I think I need to come and spend some time with you. And he responded saying, yeah, I'm in Australia. And I said, okay, I'll be on the plane tomorrow. And I got a flight the next day, and I flew to Australia for this 2 day or 1 day meeting with him.
From
And
London.
from London, yeah. And when I got into Australia, we sat down in a hotel, and he looked at my numbers, and he said, Paul, this is amazing. You've struck gold. This is a product that's going to do really well. And Halloween is coming, and you need to go back and you need to invest £100,000 in face paint. And so I had to go back, remortgage my house, and
Wow.
raise capital. And then it was very risky, very scary, but we felt that we had proved a bit of concept, and that all sold. That Halloween, it just sold, just all went out the window. Yeah, it's just
Hundred
amazing.
thousand pounds worth of inventory just went like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Unbelievable.
in 6 weeks.
In 6 weeks.
Yeah, so that's where we began our journey, and that was all part time because I was still working in the church as the children's pastor, and beginning to realise there's an opportunity now to pivot into this. I mean, I was already in talks of weaning away from the children's
That
ministry,
operation.
but it seemed like God's timing was perfect, and it was time to make some kind of transition.
Paul, I have like 1,000,001 questions popping up in my head. I don't even know which one to throw at you first. like a million questions from all you've just shared now. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's slow down a little bit, right? So let's take it one step at a time. Now, but okay, now if I go back to before you started selling face paint, or just as we're about to start, you mentioned that you sold 1,000 units first, right? And then you sold 3,000 units, right? And then you went on to have that conversation with your mentor. But before all of that, I'm just wondering what the state of your mind was when you lost everything that you invested in wine accessories, right? All of the products, you lost a lot of money, right? And
Well, it
you
wasn't a lot of money. We started really slow and small because I think
okay,
that's really important. That you need to prove concept. So we only ordered 500. 500 times five, that's not a huge investment.
that's about
Um,
2,500 quid.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
But in the
2,500 quid is a
overall
lot of
scheme of,
money.
yeah, but I'd already spent 3,000 on a training course,
Yeah,
and we were trying to raise additional cash to help us buy more properties. So
yeah,
um, it was a dip in your toe in the ocean, really.
got it.
But as I said, we learned a lot.
Got it. I mean, I'm just excited about the way you process that information to see, yes, we lost some money, quite all right, but we've also learned a lot, and we shouldn't allow that learning to go to a waste. We can still make something out of this, right? And then you started researching, and you got into the whole face paint conversation. And then your first order on that was 1,000 units, right, which sold out very fast, and then 3,000. I'm just wondering, when you were going to get into that face paint category, did you do some kind of what kind of research did you do? I know you mentioned that briefly. What kind of research did you do? Did you know how big this was going to become in terms of the size of the category, or it was just a matter of, it looks like there are some opportunities here, let's explore?
Well, I was still cutting my teeth on learning Amazon.
Mm,
There are software tools that help you analyze the potential
mm,
sales revenue and number of units that you will sell
yeah,
in a given period. If you can get to the top 3 or 5 positions on Amazon, So I mean, that's the skill, being at the top, because if you're on page two, you're just nobody.
Mm,
So that skill had to be learnt. I did learn it on the wine accessory, but then
mm-hmm,
I began to really hone in and learn it better and more
mm,
thoroughly on the first couple of orders of face paint. But I didn't know enough to realise what was about to come around the corner with peak season.
mm.
Now, 10 years on, the fourth quarter for children's products is always like 5x the
Wow,
other quarters. Yeah.
wow.
So so it is a seasonal thing where you just got to get ready for seasons like Halloween or Christmas.
Hmm.
They are big. That's when the majority of purchases are happening within my niche.
Thanks a lot for sharing that, Paul. Now, if we go to that pivotal moment, right, and I want to double click a little bit into that, when you spoke with your mentor, right, and you said, "I'm coming," right? I mean, a lot of people may not be able to put it into perspective, right? Flying to Australia is not like flying to US or Lagos. Australia is like a world away, right? So I'm sure it must have been a very long haul kind of flight,
It's the other
right?
side of the world, basically.
Do you
It's
understand?
24 hours. It's the
24
furthest you can go to.
is the farthest you can go to, even from the UK, right? And then you just
Yeah.
jumped on the plane and off you. What made you place that level of value and on that interaction? You could have said, "Can we meet virtually?" and all of that. Why did you choose to travel, and why at that particular time did you choose to speak to him, right, about all of this?
Well, lots of factors also added into that story, I guess. One, my son was living in Australia, so it was a great opportunity to piggyback on that to
Mm-hmm.
see him. Two, I love Australia; it's my favourite destination, so another reason for going to Australia. But three, no, I saw the value in training, and you need to invest in yourself in whatever field you are in to really learn. And Zoom, yeah, it was early days for Zoom. I think 10 years ago, but and it has valued absolutely. But sitting down face to face, I think I ended up. I think I was like with him for 12 hours in a hotel conference suite, and then we met for dinner that night, and then we went and met again in the morning. So I managed to get quite almost 20 hours of his time, and he subsequently invested. Well, I paid him for his time as well, by the
Yeah.
way. So
Oh,
we
really?
agreed a rate. Yeah, I can't remember. I think I paid him £1,500
Wow.
for that time as well. Um, it might have been 1,000. I can't remember, to be honest, but I felt that it was worth it.
Mm,
I saw the writing on the wall. I saw the opportunity.
mm, mm. And I'm sure that if you had not made that trip, I'm not sure you would have been ready for that explosion that happened in quarter four of that particular year. Because I'm wondering if you look at £3,000, right, in terms of what you've sold, that's the highest you've ever sold, and it was like you need to do like 100,000 worth of inventory. That number, that
Was scary.
yeah, I still
Oh,
find.
you're scary. Yeah, I think I'm quite a risk taker as well, um, and yeah, sometimes to the point of crazy. um, but if you don't take risks, then you're not going to win, really.
Mm,
I mean, to be honest, after that, I think it was October. After October Halloween season had finished, I then felt I was then that mentor in Australia said, "Hey, Paul, there's an event going on in Mexico where there's a $10,000 mastermind for a week, and I can get you in. It's a very exclusive invite, but you're clearly beginning to make success. Are you interested? I can get it I can get a lot of people have paid 10,000. I can get it for you for 7,000. I was one of the final people that they were selling tickets to. So I then did that a few months later, and again made. I think one of the key things I also learned was you are as um, I've forgotten there's a famous term, but your strength is your network. And I met in that mastermind about 30 people that we still speak to this day. Um, they everything on Amazon was very new at the time, but a lot of those people in that room went on to become Amazon gurus and mentors. And I've not, I've done a bit of mentoring and coaching, but on the whole, I've tried to just focus on our own business and not get sidetracked. But yeah, I learned a lot from him, and then from that mastermind event again in Mexico.
Wow. I mean, just thinking about all of this, Paul, it looks like you place a lot of value on development, personal development, on training, on investing to get more information and to network. Because thinking about the flight to, out of a kind of flight to Australia, right? Because he told you that day, and the next day you are on the plane. Yes, I know you love Australia. I know your son lives in Australia, but it's not that you knew he lives in Australia, right? Anywhere you are in the world, I'm coming. And he said, I'm in Australia. And you jump on the plane primarily for that purpose. And then a couple of weeks after that, he reached out to you, $7,000 for a particular mastermind group. And you were like, okay, I'm in, I'll do it, right? How did you get to this point where you place this much value and this much premium on learning and becoming better? And what shaped your thinking along this line?
I think obviously you'd be a fool day one to invest $10,000 in a mastermind if you
Mm,
hadn't already had some level of success.
yeah.
So I think you need to tread gently, but as you begin to learn and then you put into practice what you've learned, and if it proves to be successful, then you need to step up to the next rung
Mm.
of
Of
mentorship
impact,
and
yeah.
experience and
Yeah.
learning. Yeah. And that is a cost. Now, there are people that spend $100,000 on masterminds. Now, I don't do that. I'm not in that league, and I think that's crazy. But um, I think it is. I have learned that if you, as the business made more money, it was able to afford to do these things. So, but in doing so, I've always learnt more, and my network has increased. And having the help of a network of people around you is critical. It's crucial. It's really helpful. Otherwise, it's a really lonely business. This is my study. I'm in my home, and I'm here. From 9 a.m. to like 6 p.m. every day. But I've got people all over the world that I can speak to for assistance and help, and I've helped them as well over the years.
Paul, is interesting, and thanks for sharing that perspective and for that wisdom you just shared there around the fact that your investment per time in some of those things is relative to the size of the business. So it's not just some, thing you do randomly, right? You know what you can afford or what the business can support, and you're doing it based on that. So it's a kind of sustainable investment in personal development, right? To be honest, in my own little journey, I've not done a lot of businesses, but in my work, and I've seen businesses that, which is why I'm a bit tripped about some of the stories you've shared. I've seen businesses that were doing pretty big, right, and the owners would not take out a few hundred quid to go and sit and learn how to do it better, right? And I have a couple of sad stories along that line. Yeah, some of the businesses that have collapsed and all of that because to keep it simple, the business basically outgrew them, right? And it just became apparent that they are not able to manage that level of influence and success, and then either through pilfering or hiring the wrong people or not having the right policies in place, the business is just basically over time collapsed, right? So I'm tripped about that your mindset is you're given to learning, and it's not just because the money is available, right, or the business is that big. It's also because you just value it, right, and you want to really learn and get better at what you do. Now, you mentioned that you have a lot of people around the world that, of course, within your network that you lean on, and they also lean on you. And that wants me to want to click a little bit into people, right? Now, how many people do you have supporting you on this operation in terms of employees, right? And how scattered are they, or are they all in the UK?
So my son came back from Australia, and he's now a full time employee in London. Um, so he probably earns more than any of us actually, because he's very talented. He manages the brand and the look and the feel and the aesthetic. So I've got two VAs in the Philippines, and I've got another team that run my new product launches and ranking, which I know how to do, but as the business grows, you need to release certain tasks. So I have two people in somewhere else in the UK, but over time, I've had different people around the world do that task, and managing the advertising as well. So at the moment, there's quite a few in the UK, but I've had people in the Philippines, I've had people in Eastern Europe as well. So yeah, some were employed, but a lot of freelance.
Guys,
You
okay,
pay as you go
okay.
as well. Yeah.
So it looks like a pretty lean operation in
I was
terms
very
of.
lean. Yeah, yeah. So graphic designer. She is currently in Colombia, um, South America, but we've had graphic designers again in Eastern Europe. We've had
Yeah.
them in Leeds, UK. So yeah, we use different people at different times,
Mm,
but full time employees is probably only my son. My wife and I are the two main directors,
mm.
and the two VAs in the Philippines. That's probably the crux of the team.
Of the theme, right? That's super. That's super lean and super efficient organization that you have in there. Now, Paul, if we go back and have a little conversation around funding. Now, and I know that you started business before, you had some business by the side before you went into the Amazon business and all of that. But you mentioned the fact that you needed to pivot from, say, 3,000 in terms of shipment to about 800,000, and that required quite a lot, right? And I'm sure since that time you've also had to do stuff on funding, right? Where I come from, funding is always a challenge for new startups, right? And not just for startups, even for some that have been in business for a while, who wants to pivot and get into higher level of business and all of that. Um, what has your experience been along this line, right? In terms of funding, and would you have any thought or advice broadly for people?
Yeah, funding has been a challenge. Cash flow has always been a challenge because you need to keep on buying new inventory all the
Mm,
time, and
mm,
you need to be also evolving and launching new products all the time as well. You can't just sit on products of 10 years ago. You've got
mm,
to add more to the catalog continually. So there is always a need for additional finance. Now, I've been very blessed in that we have this property business. And don't forget, the idea was that Amazon was meant to bring money to the property business, but the reverse happened. Also, I was meant to sit on a beach for 4 hours and Amazon would just take care of itself. That did not happen. That is a lie from hell. I work full time in the Amazon business, and
wow.
the property business happens. Probably about 10% of my time is running the
Mm,
property business,
mm,
which I continue to self manage that as well. So the property business has been a great source of income,
mm,
of lending
mm.
into the
The
Amazon
Amazon
business.
business.
My pension has helped supplement the business.
Mm,
Pension lump sums I've been
yeah,
able to take out,
yeah.
um, and there are some banking, trade finance things
Mm,
in place as well. I think during COVID there were a few government schemes that we managed to borrow. I think like £250,000
yeah.
on a government scheme that was really low, and
Mm.
like 5 year repayments, and that was perfect, and really good timing. But those deals are not there now. Yeah.
Wow, wow, it's interesting, really. And thanks for sharing that. I think it's helpful because what this indicates to me is you've not so much as looked outside to other people for funding as much as you've looked inward, right, at what is within your own control or what is available to you. And in 10 years, that has, of course, sustained you so far. And maybe in the near future, right, you probably want to go bigger and get more funding and all of that. But at least so far, so good. It looks like, you know, I do hope that the 4 day week thing materializes soon, though, because you're 60-year old, right, and I'm sure you are looking forward to some time on the beach, right? Just sipping pina colada or something, right? Aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I am looking to. I mean, the idea, the real money to be made in a business like Amazon or a brand, that kind of brand, I very much feel is in the exit, in the sale, and that's what we are hoping to move toward. But the timing has to be right, and you're probably aware of the current China tariffs that are a big factor in something that we're very complex that we're trying to navigate because all of our products currently are made in China. So for this tariff news is, I think it's now 5 weeks old, 5 weeks old news. It's a massive challenge that we're currently facing into, and we're having to pivot into finding suppliers in other countries, which, to be honest, we probably should have been doing before. The writing was on the wall, but it's only when Mr. Trump steps up and does his thing that we suddenly find we're forced to do it. So a bit lazy, really, I would say. But anyway, that's another story, I guess.
Well, I mean, now that you mentioned that, Paul, so you produce in China, right? And then from China, or you used to produce predominantly in China, and from China shipped into the US, coordinated from into the US and some part of Europe, and then coordinate everything from around London in the UK. Now it looks like a lean operation, like we'll talk, but this is an elaborate setup, right? Managing the supply chain and ensuring that you don't run out of stock, right? That your stuff is always available for shoppers to buy. How do you manage this? Order to delivery lead time and complexities of shipping and all of that. How do you do
Yeah,
that?
it's very challenging and very complex. And when you add additional marketplaces, so obviously we were initially just US, and then when we went to the UK, everything doubles in terms of effort, in terms of managing inventory and forecasting sales and ensuring that, because when we're talking about a lead time that is like 4 to 6 weeks to make, and then 4 to 8 weeks to arrive, based upon whether the US is 4 weeks and the UK is 7, 8 weeks. So yeah, that's a very complex piece of work, and I've used different softwares over the time to help me, but actually I've given up on those softwares, and gone back to my Google Sheets. I run the whole operation still on Google Sheets, but it's a very sophisticated sheet, and I do love Excel. So I think some people will be quite shocked at how we run that, but that's
Yeah.
proven to be the best method for me.
Wow. And would you say, I mean, speaking about that particular tool that you've designed that you're using within the organization, would you say that you're able to do that as a result of your background in IT and your experience is in paid employment, right? Selling programs and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that's a definite help. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
sure. Yeah.
So I think let's go there. Let's go to the conversation around your paid employment, right? Because we didn't go that far back before we. So if we can go a little far back, will you be able to tell us just a bit about a little bit of more detail around what your background was in, right? The scope of what you were doing and how you had to navigate from that into entrepreneurship.
So I think the foundation was in IT and software development and working in a software company, and getting in that software company at the beginning, and then it really grew quickly. And I rose up the ranks because as the business grew, lots of people joined at the bottom and pushed me up, and I learned lots of management, project directorship. Um, so that was a really good foundation for me. Um, and then, as I said earlier, I felt that I had four young children, and I was leaving work, leaving to go to London, probably 7 a.m. every morning, and not getting back till like 8 p.m. at night. And that was I had like 150 programmers and project managers working, reporting to me. So it was a very involved and busy job. And I had so-called made it because the salary was very high and the position was very good, but it was not fulfilling. And I felt that I always felt that there was a call for me to be involved in ministry in the church, and I was really dissatisfied with how I was not around for my own family. Yeah, four young kids, and just always in the city and traveling. And I just felt that the time was right to give that up. As I say, it was a very scary time because we literally took an 80% pay cut to go and work for the church, and I had four young kids and a big mortgage and a wife with expensive taste. So um, it was a scary time, but we saw incredible provision from God, really,
Yeah.
in providing for our needs month in, month out, whilst we work for the church. So I've forgotten what your question was, Cunley. Please forgive me.
So the question was around, yeah, how you navigated that transition, right, from paid employment into entrepreneurship. And I know that you left and you started working in the church, but I think you also
Yeah.
started the whole property business sometime somewhere in
So while we
between
were
that,
working in the
right?
church, probably 10 years in, um, we inherited some money and began to work, do on the side property. Um, and we made every mistake under the book, but then began to do some training and learn how to do things properly. So then, in doing so, we because in my IT days, I learned how to manage many things and many projects. In the church environment, I was running a major program event on a weekly basis. It was like a 90-minute program, and the component parts within that program were on average 2 to 3 minutes each. So I had to plan that program on a weekly basis, plan a big visitation strategy because we visited all the children that came. We visited 1,000 children every week, and managed the 40 volunteers. So then the church saw that I had that skill of managing many things, so they got me to manage the church conferences on the side, and then they got me to manage property projects for the church as well. So I was managing many projects within the church. So then, when my own property opportunities arose, that was just another project to run. Um, and then, as some of the things in the church began to um, peter out in my personal involvement in them, I was then able to look at things like the Amazon opportunity as well. So it was quite good because I have a close friend that came into some money and he saw my success and he literally gave up his job, invested £60,000 in one trip to China and in loads and loads of orders, and the thing completely failed. And I think that was a I've never taken that approach. I've always treaded slowly, invested. Yeah, it was a bit risky, but it was a measured risk,
Calculated,
and
yeah.
the investment was calculated. And I didn't jump ship without having proven that
That
the
this
property
will
would work, the Amazon would work, and the church was really good because they released me they 1 day a week, and then they released me 2 day a week, and then it was 3 day a
was
week.
phased
So
approach.
it was a very phased approach. The church was really good to me in that respect, and then going full time working for yourself is a scary thing. But we did it in a phased manner.
Wow. Wow. So Paul, it's I'm just looking at your journey, right? And I can see like a red thread coming through. It looks like everything you've done, either in 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 your corporate life, or even
Yeah,
when you work within the ministry, everything it looks like prepared you to be able to lead the businesses that you've not been leading for a couple of years. Well, will that be a good way to say that? Yeah, it looks like you.
100%. I mean, I look back and I think there are seasons in our lives, and I see so far 3 seasons
Mm,
after childhood, of course. Um, those three, and I think the age of 60 is quite a key moment in my life,
mm,
and I think I am over the next few years will be moving into a fourth season.
mm.
Um, and Yeah, every one of those seasons, I can see God's hand and help in preparing me for the next season.
Wow, wow. So this is so loaded. So let me slow down a little bit. So thank
It was
you.
literally 20 to 40, and then 40 to 60. Um, yeah,
And I'm sure that you only connected that dot or those dots looking backward, right? When you were in corporate life, you just wanted to be the best at it. And when you began to feel that sense of dissatisfaction, you started thinking about your exit. And then you exited into the ministry and then back into the business. Just like you've it's like you have like three lives in one so far. Maybe you're going into the fourth one now. Who can tell? Who can tell?
but in
Wow.
all of it, I've tried to put God first,
Mm-hmm.
and so in my IT days, that was very much, I was always involved in children's ministry
Mm,
whilst working as in software. Um, and then obviously working full time in ministry was a key thing for me. But even after leaving the church, I've always continued to be involved.
involved, yeah.
I don't work with children in the church now, but I have a big heart for evangelism
Yeah.
and reaching people. So I run the Alpha courses at this time
Mm.
in our local church.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Paul. I have two quick questions for you, right? Around some of the things you've shared. So, number one question is about that your friend that you said saw your success, and then £60,000, £60,000, and everything went down the drain. Was it just a matter of not being methodical or not taking a phased approach, or it was borderline recklessness in terms of how he went about it? First question, and then
Well, I
this.
hope he's not watching this video, but I think probably borderline recklessness. But let me not just talk about him. Let me talk about the fact that after a few years of the Amazon success,
Yeah.
I formed a small group in my church and invited 10 people into weekly small group where we
Wow.
would learn about Amazon together.
Yeah.
And in that group were people that are very successful in other walks of life. They're not stupid, they were clever, smart people.
Mm.
And out of those 10, only one succeeded.
Mm.
Um, so I think just because you see someone else succeed doesn't necessarily mean that you can replicate that
Yeah.
yourself. I think, and I'm not wishing to blow my own trumpet and
Yeah.
just say, "Hey, how clever am I?" But I think I get frustrated sometimes when I think other people around me, why can't you do this?
Mm.
It's so straightforward. And they say, actually, Paul, you're you're really multi-talented. You're really multi-skilled. And just because I can do it doesn't mean that other people. We've all got different skills, and I have probably some unique skills. I'm not the sharpest person on Amazon at all. There are people way brighter than I that have been more successful than I, for sure. But I do know how to do all sorts of multiple tasks, and yeah. So I was really surprised going back to the 10 people and only one was successful. Really shocked. And they were bamboozled by so much that I was trying to teach them that I had been taught. And yeah, the person that spent 60K, they were, I would say, that was reckless as well. Giving up your job, spending so much money without having proven. They didn't have a clue about data and marketing and shipping and forecasting and yeah. So it just went wrong, wrong, wrong on so many levels.
Thanks a lot, Paul. I still have that second question coming, but if I want to distill this just to bring it a little hope for our viewers, it will be that number one, before you even invest anything or before you take either a phased approach or a reckless approach, right? First of all, be sure that you have the skill set you have the personality, right, and the skill set for this type of business, right? Because some things are just not meant for some people, right? They don't just have the patience, they don't have the aptitude, it's not their thing. They are brilliant in other things, but on this particular thing
Yeah,
it's not. So
absolutely, and they're not to be belittled either.
mm,
Um, People in the care profession, in education, in the health industry, they're fantastic people that
yeah,
do brilliant things. But you've got to find out what it is that you are good at and
yeah,
focus on that.
yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the key take home from that to say that that the fact that somebody is doing it and is working for them does not mean you're wired for it, right? Just be sure that before you try to replicate their success, that be sure that you have that wiring for it. Um,
Yeah.
Thanks, and then we can now start having conversations around taking a phased approach and stuff like that, or So the other question, thanks a lot, Paul, for that. The other question I want to ask you would be around your perspectives around credibility, reputation. Apparently, in your journey, over the last 40 years, you've dealt with a lot of not just partners, you've dealt with clients, you've dealt with customers, you've dealt with all sort of people, right? And what role, how important would you say reputation, credibility, and stuff like that play in, sustainably driving business growth or growing your network?
I think in all walks of life, you you know you should love your neighbour as yourself and do unto others as you would have them do to you. I think so. I'm very much a people person and very much. I mean, today that would, I guess, transpire to ensuring that our products are safe, um, that our customer service is exceptional, and that we always give people the benefit of the doubt and bend over backwards to fix problems when they go wrong. Try to be the best and the fairest landlord I possibly can be. I've got 36 tenants, and I treat them as I would hope someone would treat my children who are renting. So people that sign a contract with me and then fall on bad times and they need to exit that contract, many landlords out there would really screw them for 6 months rental and they can't afford it. And I will just work with them and help them. I had someone this week who's just moved from South Africa, just been in the house for 3 weeks. They've been working and they've just got their paycheck at the end of April. So, yeah, and it wasn't enough to pay for May. So we've just worked out a plan. And so, yeah, but that's every aspect of life. You just try to help people. And I believe that even that training course that I did for 10 people in the church is because I wanted to help them. I wanted other people to have the opportunity. So, yeah, I think really trying, and that's what I've learned in the Amazon masterminds and dealing with these mentors and other people around the world. There's a desire to help one another. And it doesn't necessarily always mean that financially you're going to get paid. Well, you're not going to get paid at all for that financial help, but you want to help people,
Mm,
and you know that it will return to you. It will come back.
one way or the other, yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, I've invested a lot in other people, and other people invested in me, and that's
Hmm.
great.
Thanks a lot. I guess the entrepreneurship journey I guess we continue to learn, right? Because it seems like there is not like one single formula to success. We just have to find a way to get the different principles, right? And kind of find ways to localize them in our own personal journey, and then go from there. Now, Paul, you I'm just wondering if I go back to the conversation around 4 day week, time on the beach, pina colada, and all of that, right? If you look back on all of these, right, and you begin to think about them from from the perspective of fulfillment and you know value you've extracted and you've gotten out of this, right? Would you say that if you have to start it all over again, right? I mean, think about it all. Will you still take the same approach? Will you still do Amazon, for instance, or will you still do property, or will you still? Do you get what I mean? I guess that's a roundabout way of saying that yes, maybe that it's been a bit challenging, but overall has it been worth it, right? Nicer way to put it.
Well, yeah, I mean, to say you're on a beach, you only need to be at the desk for 4 hours a week and you can be on the beach the rest of the time is not true. However, I do have a virtual job where I can work anywhere in the world. So
Mm,
we have holidays in Australia for 6 weeks. We do go every summer to Spain for 4 to 6 weeks and work
wow,
for, but I can work from those places. So I am my own boss and I can work anywhere in the world. That is wonderful. And
wow.
I love that element of my job. That's a very rewarding thing. Um, uh, I've forgotten the question.
So the question
This is
is, would you
this
do?
is the bit we have to edit.
I guess your mind is already in. Okay, I need to get on the plane, but don't worry, we'll begin to wrap up soon. Now, I guess the question is around will if you will do it again, right? And
Oh yes, but I'll do it again. Yeah. So I think when people come to me now, I mean, Amazon's got more and more challenging, and the competition's got really fierce. And the margins are getting squeezed by so many factors. So I am very, very reluctant to recommend the Amazon opportunity as much as I perhaps did in the past. Um, so I'm glad I've done it, and I know that I've now built a brand on Amazon that I can just add more and more products to, and eventually, hopefully, it will be a type of business that will be attractive for someone to come and acquire. Um, but I don't regret a moment of the journey. I feel it's been right and part of God's plan for my life. Um, but I think there's elements of what I've done that we can learn from them and take apply them into any walk of life. And things like taking risks, calculated risks, investing in your own education, um, and I think another thing I would say is you'll probably never, or not many people get rich by being an employee in a corporation. So if you really want to have success, I think you need to launch your own business. For a lot of us, I think that is the journey that will bring the most success. I'm also very very excited about property. Always have been and continue to be. I think safest houses is a phrase we use in the UK, and that business is the most robust and the safest element of what I do. And that business is also what has paid our salary over these 10 years, predominantly. Amazon does pay some and it's invested quite a bit into our pension, but in terms of monthly income, that's a steady flow. Property's been great, so I recommend property to everyone where they can, and I less recommend Amazon, I guess.
Paul, I think we probably need to have that kind of mastermind group that you did for those 10 people on Amazon. We probably need to do something like that for people on property, right? Because yeah, maybe the barrier to entry it's a bit higher in terms of startup capital, but it looks like a little bit more sustainable and more reliable kind of business model versus Amazon, right? But I mean, but overall, it's good to know that if you have the opportunity, you will still do it, right? So you'll still do it again and again. Now, Paul, any particular pain points, not necessarily like that you're still facing or you're still dealing with, but you look back and you're like, wow, that was a very painful experience, right? In the course of your business, or of course, managing family and business and all of that together.
Um, they're quite specific to what I do. I mean, running out of stock is a big issue for my type of business. So, learning inventory management has been quite painful, and we could have done much better had we been better at it all the way through. Um, Cash flow is a challenge, and continues to be. Um, I probably spend a lot of my time in the business working on the financials these days rather than all the other moving parts of the business.
So cash flow and um, inventory management, which I think to a large extent these are very very related anyways, because inventory is cash, cash is inventory, and I know a little bit about the whole inventory piece because the moment you are out of stock, there is a way the algorithm they prioritize your brand, right? And it takes some time before you get back up to that. Now, and I'm moving here and there, but speaking of brand now, right? Did your brand just grow organically, right? When you launched it, and perhaps this should have come a bit earlier. But did you? To what extent are you invested in building brand equity, awareness, paid advert, and all of that across all the businesses that you do?
Well, there are many people um, on Amazon that sell everything that moves, that it's not really a brand. It's just lots and lots of completely
Unrelated.
non-related products. And I don't like that approach. I don't think it's joined up thinking.
Mm,
We're very focused on building a brand and having a brand identity. And not every product in that brand will necessarily be successful.
mm,
However, it adds to the brand. It adds to the catalog that the brand is able to offer.
yeah,
And I think, so for example, we sell like paintbrushes, artist paintbrushes.
yeah.
It's not a big item that we sell many of, but I think
It's
someone
within.
looking for a paintbrush
Yeah,
sees that, and then they learn of the brand.
yeah.
When they get that,
Complementary
they
in a
see the
sense. Yeah.
catalogue of what we offer. Yeah, so I think it all dovetails in. As far as advertising is concerned, if you don't advertise on Amazon, you're dead in the water. So advertising
Really?
is a huge investment. Yeah, I mean, if you go to the page, if you go to any page on Amazon search result, most people can't even work out these days what is organic and what is sponsored. There was so much sponsored all over the page, the top, the side, halfway down, third way down, towards the bottom. Sponsored, sponsored, sponsored. It's called pay to play, and if you're not paying to play, you do not play. Um, so
Wow.
you want to be organically. In the past, it was really important to be in organic position 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas these days, yeah, you still want to be there, but um, you won't stay there if you're not also doing heavy, heavy advertising investment. Um, the challenge is to ensure that the spend on advertising is, well, my current goal is 15%.
Mm.
Um, Whereas, last year we were hovering around 20, 21%, and it's too much. That's
Wow.
too much hit on your bottom line.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's quite complex algorithms and software and
Mm.
management, to be honest. Um, that I've now outsourced because it's just too big.
Yeah.
And I've outsourced probably for the last 5 years, and it's been painful because they've still not done necessarily a good job. I
Mm.
think I've now found a new partner that's doing a very good job.
On how to
So
manage the advertising part of the
advertising to
part
get
of.
it to what we call a 15% TACOS, true advertising cost of sale. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. If you don't advertise, you're dead. Hmm. That's an interesting one. And is that applicable to your property business? Do you do that for your property business? You or that basically just grow on its own?
No, no, that's a very different model. There's a piece of software called Spare Room, a platform that
Yeah.
is a piece of cake. It just, I think I pay advertising. Well, to use that software
Mm-hmm.
cost me £200 a year,
Wow.
like 0.5%. Well, not even that. No, minuscule percentage. Whereas on Amazon, it's 15% is the
Wow.
goal.
Wow.
Yeah, a
Wow.
completely different model.
I get it. So, Paul, I think given our time, it's just about five, right? And I don't want to push the lock towards the 5:15. I know you've given us a little bit of latitude on that, but I want to kind of begin to bring this to a close, right? And I guess the final question I would like to ask you, or better still, maybe two questions, will be number one. How you mentioned something around the earlier time of your career when you had to do a lot of traveling and how that impacted your availability, especially for family, right? And been married for a very long time, and your kids are doing great and all of that. I just want to if you can say a word or two to entrepreneurs just starting out, and career people also, on how you've managed to strike that balance over the years, because you took some serious decisions so that you can be a bit more available, right? So if there is a way they can better strike that balance on one hand, and then if you have a particular set of advice for new business people just starting out, that will be the final question.
Yeah. I mean, family is the most important thing. And if all you're doing is chasing after money and working all the hours that God gives, I mean, the seventh day of rest, I think, is a key thing to do as well. So for me, there is always, always stuff to do on Amazon. I try to finish work at between 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. I could go on to midnight easily, but I choose not to because just that discipline I think is really important. Um, and I also try to avoid work mostly on the whole of Saturday and Sunday. So I get 2 days proper rest per week as well. But I think the whole thing, God even rested on the seventh day. I think it's crucial to have one day of rest every single week where you just completely cut out. But that's just your rest. But you as a parent and investment in your children and time with your family is crucial. That it's just so important and always been a big priority of mine. Um, and when I was literally, my wife was busy dealing with them in the morning and then putting them to bed before I got in at night time. That went on for too many years, and it was not good, and it needed to change. So I'm glad that we did make that change. The children were probably around the age of about 5 to 7 when we took that change. Um, so through the majority of the childhood, they had me
How do you
around a lot more. Yeah,
that's very helpful. I mean, so those very clear tips, and managing weekends, not working beyond a certain time. The work never finishes, so we have to learn to just So thanks a lot for sharing that. So on
having
to
said that, one more thing I would say on that. Of course, there are always projects where you do need to burn the midnight oil. That will occur from time to time, and hopefully your family will be completely understanding of that.
mm,
You just need to make sure that's not the norm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Very good caveat. Very good caveat for that, because yes, that happens from time to time. Either in our personal businesses or in career, there will be times that we need to go over and above once in a while and do the extra. So thanks a lot for sharing
yeah.
that. So Paul, what would your final words be for number one sense of advice for new people who are starting out in life, in business, in career, and all of that? Because you've been everywhere, right? You've been a minister, full time. You've been a career person full time. Now you're you're a mix of all, right? So what would your advice be, right? And see it like this: like, if I'm speaking to the younger version of myself, right? What advice would you have for yourself, right? Because I'm sure a lot of, our viewers can find themselves, in your younger version, right? And then if you have any final words, we will draw the curtain.
I guess if you hate your work, you're in the wrong job. So it needs to be something that you enjoy, and that there's a joy in going to work. I think that's really important. Um, so there needs to be joy. You also need to, I think, to really get on, you need to uh, change, regularly change. I mean, I remember when we first got married, we changed house every 1 month. Every year or two, we were changing houses initially. Same in the career. You don't just stay in the one job. Stay there until you've learnt enough, then to move to the next company where you can learn more skills and different ways of doing things. That will broaden your experience. Um, and then in working for yourself, which I think is, personally, I think that's the ultimate aim for most of us. I know you can be mega successful in corporation. Some people are really successful in corporate jobs, but I think on the whole, most of us will only make true success by working for ourselves. And so look for opportunities and ideas and business ideas where see opportunities that you can begin to move into, but don't jump ship straight away. Prove it first, and then once it's proven, then gradually move into that. So take risks as well. Um, uh, don't be too risk adverse, because if you take no risk, I don't think you'll succeed. You've got to put your money where your mouth is and invest in education and invest in the business that you're going to move into.
Wow, wow, wow! That's a masterclass of its own, right? A quick a quick masterclass that you just delivered to our viewers. Paul, once again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for all that you've shared in the last 75 to 80 minutes, right? We can't thank you enough, right? We are super appreciative of that. Our prayer and our hope is, people will really, listen to these, and will not just listen to it, but they will draw a lot of value from it, right? And as a result, they will scale faster and be able to even avoid some of the mistakes that you've made or that some of your friends made in their entrepreneurial journey. That's why we do what we do, right? So that they can learn, avoid the mistakes, and achieve a level of success with faster than the generations before. So, thanks a lot. We are super thankful for having you around. Thank you. Hey, thanks a lot for taking the time to watch the podcast. We are super thankful for you taking that time and investing the time to learn. We hope that you find the story inspiring, and beyond that, that you've been able to articulate one or two things that you want to do differently in your own entrepreneurial journey. May I encourage you to please like, subscribe, comment, and please share the word within your own circle of influence, especially within those that you think are on the same entrepreneurial journey with you. May I also encourage you to please, beyond subscribing to our YouTube channel, follow us on our other social media platforms. That means a lot to us, and we can see that that helps us to track that we're making some progress and so making some impact. Thanks a lot once again for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you on the next episode.